Hey everybody, David the AI Guide here. Welcome to another live. Thanks so much for tuning in. We got great stuff to talk about this week, but first, I just want to mention you can get my book, The Beginner's Guide to AI, on Amazon. It's cheap and it's easy to read, and it gives you a short history of AI plus current impact on 10 industries. Well worth it. Only takes a few hours to read the whole book. And the other thing is, click the link below and get your free AI resource. The resource is free. Everything in the resource is free. And we're going to talk about in a few minutes exactly why I'm urging you to take advantage of this resource. So let's get started, and we got three things to talk about, each pretty much hot off the press and stuff that's really at the cutting edge of AI. So we talked last week, or maybe the week before, about UAVs, autonomous air vehicles, and we talked about how there's a lot of regulation that has to be done by different regulating agencies. Here in the US, it's the Federal Aviation Administration to integrate these vehicles into the national airspace. Same with drones. This time we are going to talk about self-driving vehicles. So GM has had cruise vehicles going around fully autonomously in San Francisco for a while now. These have been very limited rides, and they have not been able to charge people. But the purpose of the rides was to get GM's system ready to go fully driverless. And these vehicles are. They only operate between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. hours when traffic is greatly reduced. But the point that GM is at now is a game changer, because they are applying to the California Public Utilities Commission, which regulates ride-hailing services like Uber, Lyft, taxis, etc., for a license to operate these vehicles statewide. Now, initially, it will be at the same hours from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., I think at 6 or 7, but overnight hours. But eventually, that will change, right? So, really interesting article. Links will be shared after this. This particular article came out of Wired. So they say, on an early April morning around 4 a.m., a San Francisco fire department truck responded to a fire, tried to pass a double-parked garbage truck in the opposite lane. But a traveling autonomous vehicle operated by Cruise, part of GM, without anyone inside, was blocking its path. The Cruise froze when it saw the fire truck, which was correct behavior for an autonomous vehicle. The blockage was resolved when the garbage truck driver realized that the fire truck was stuck in place and ran out and moved the garbage truck. So the San Francisco Fire Department, as you might expect, filed a letter about this situation with the California Public Utilities Commission, and said, this is a problem and this needs to be addressed in the in the context of thinking about giving Cruise a statewide license. But here's the thing. Let's say that a human was in the car. The human might have had the wits to quickly back up the car, right? On the other hand, the human might have been completely wasted at 4 a.m. So it's difficult to say what would have happened. And as we go on through the article, the Public Utility Commission is aware of this and is working on trying to make autonomous vehicles as safe as possible when they license them, but it is coming. The license will be granted. And there's several services trying to launch fully autonomous ride-hailing services in the state of California. So Cruise is ahead of the other ones, but Waymo, which has been operating a fully autonomous ride-hail service for a while in Phoenix now, which is much easier than San Francisco to drive in, and Zoox, which is now owned by Amazon. So these are the big dogs who are doing these programs. But they go on to say that in San Francisco, if you're out, late at night, you will see many autonomous vehicles with no driver in them. Now, Cruise, in fairness, has a remote center where people are watching all these cars and they can step in and drive one of these cars if necessary, if something happens. But this situation was really unusual. It basically says that this situation is what they call an edge situation or a fluke. Actually, they call it a corner case. This is a road incident so strange or rare, it's hard for self-driving vehicle developers to anticipate it. In other words, it's something that human drivers may go years and years and years without ever experiencing, but the self-driving car is magically expected to figure it out. And I'll talk about that in 1 second. But this article goes on to say something very interesting that I haven't seen before, which is these corner case scenarios help explain why many in the self-driving vehicle industry now concede that no one will ever build a car that can operate on all roads in all conditions, rain, snow, etc., what people call level 5 or full self-driving. I'll get back to that in a minute as well. General Motors and Cruise will pour $35 billion into autonomy. That's with a B, billion, by 2025. $2 billion in autonomous vehicles this year alone. And they go on to say, Waymo is continuing to expand its car service in Phoenix. And then Zoox is about to unveil its prototype vehicle. And Cruise is also building a self-driving shuttle, which, by the way, we've talked about is already operating in the Brooklyn Navy Yard in New York City. But Cruise's shuttle is called the Origin, goes into production next year. Vehicles don't go into production unless they expect to make tens of thousands of them. So what does this all mean? It means a few things. First of all, clearly the regulations have to be formulated to allow full autonomy or even most level 4 autonomy, right? But the interesting thing is that these regulations are now being actively drafted by the different states, who are the entities that will govern most of these vehicles. The only vehicles where the federal government controls what happens is the interstate highways and federal roads. So we know already that there's fully autonomous trucks with a human driver driving many of the freeways in the United States right now, and in Europe, we know that. So this regulatory environment is going to develop quickly. The other thing that's interesting is that fully autonomous vehicles or fully autonomous capable vehicles are going into production by automakers other than Tesla right now. So all signs are pointing to exactly what I have said, that by 2025, there will be mass autonomous vehicles on the road. And the article says, although I didn't read it, that this is going to fundamentally change how people live in urban environments, meaning cities, because if you can get a cheap, on-demand vehicle at any time you need it, 24/7, and you don't have to pay in a city to garage a car, which is very expensive, or hunt for street parking, which is a complete pain in the ass. I know people who live in Boston who don't own a car because it's such a hassle to try to find parking on the street, because many homes don't have parking. Even a lot of apartment buildings and condos don't have parking in Boston. So this is set to fundamentally change by 2025, as I've been saying here at the AI Guide, how cities run, if you will. So this is big news, and this means that the auto production facilities are being built right now. I know for a fact, because I happened to see it a few weeks ago, that GM is building a massive new factory in Spring Hill, Tennessee, for the fully autonomous all-electric Lyriq vehicle that is coming from Cadillac. And right next to it, they're building a massive battery factory by Ultium, which is a JV with LG out of Korea. And interesting tidbit on that, carbon nanotubes are just at the verge, after 30 years, of changing many aspects of how things are done in the world with materials. And one of those is batteries, and LG is going to be making carbon nanotubes for Ultium batteries. In fact, LG already has a 3,000 ton a year production capacity in Japan, or Korea. So a lot of these are all exponential technologies that, as we talk about here on the AI Guide, are coming to fruition all at the same time. Okay, big news. Next up, big news, straight out of Microsoft Build's developer conference this past week. So Microsoft showed off a new tool that is an AI helper for the game Minecraft. It's a non-player character, so this is not a game participant. However, this AI can auto-generate code. And what it shows is that Microsoft is working to replace all the interfaces that are currently used with PCs over the next few years. What are the interfaces with PCs right now? Well, mostly it's typing, right? Same with your phone. Or tapping on a phone, or clicking on a phone. All of this will be replaced by pure voice-driven instructions. Why? We're going to talk more about it in a second, but the reason why is computing power. Computing power is now so massive and so massively available that it is making AI be on steroids. So the Minecraft agent responds appropriately to type commands by converting them into working code. An example, come here. You type come here. It creates the code that makes your player in Minecraft come toward you. So they say it's not clear yet how well this will work outside of the demo that was built, but the code and the AI behind it are massive. Microsoft has built an AI coding tool called GitHub Copilot on top of this same technology. This technology automatically suggests code to a developer when the developer starts typing. It's like Google's thing that completes your sentences for you when you're writing an email or text messaging on the Google platform. The guy at Microsoft, whose name is God, says that Copilot is the first instance of what will likely be a slew of AI-first products in the coming year from Microsoft and others. So I told you at the beginning, click the link below, get the free resource. Why? I have told you on every single video for the last few months that you will be required to know how to interface with AI at your job within 3 years. That prediction is exactly what this article is saying. Sorry about my voice. The humidity is super low here today. We're going to see lots and lots and lots of big productivity wins for all sorts of routine cognitive work, thinking work that none of us enjoys. This means doing everything by voice-driven command. Think Jarvis in your home. It's almost here. In recent years, AI has proven adept at tasks such as classifying images, transcribing audio, and translating text. So the Minecraft bot was built using an AI model called Codex that was developed by, guess who? OpenAI, who got funding from Microsoft in 2019. Codex was trained on natural language text scraped from the web, as well as billions of lines of code from GitHub. This is the power of AI, right? An AI can scan now billions, in the future trillions of lines of code to program something. A human can't even come close to that. Microsoft Copilot is now being used by over 10,000 developers who are producing on average 35% of their code in Python and Java using Copilot. However, and it says, Codex and Copilot have stirred up anxiety among developers who fear being automated out of a job. But the article goes on to say that these AIs have been programmed with faulty code as well. So from time to time, they produce bad code. So I have said repeatedly that programming is not one of the tasks that will be automated in the very near future, meaning by 2025, and that it's safe out to 2030. And the reason why is because the data that is used to program these massive AIs is corrupted, if you will, by faulty code. And so just like robots, for a while now into the future, humans will be needed to co-work with Copilot. Copilot will not totally take over from humans. Not for a while, maybe by 2030. Why? Yes, because by then the AI will learn not to replicate mistakes. But this is a way off. In 8 years, that's a meaningful part of your career. And so this is a relatively AI-safe career path for right now, assuming you get in right now. Click the link below, get your free resources, start learning more about AI than we can do here on these lives every Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern, or the midweek videos that we do. I'm doing all this to help you. It's the entire reason I started the AI Guide, was to prepare people who are at the beginning or middle of their careers to switch jobs now to something AI safe, so that you have a career as long as possible before full automation kicks in, which it will. Ray Kurzweil say says all jobs will be automated by 2040. That is within almost everybody listening to me lifetime. And I don't broadcast for older people, so, and they're past their working career anyway, so this is not primarily addressed to them, but if you have kids and grandkids, you should care. And it's the whole reason I started the AI Guy. It's the reason I have created the free resource. It's the reason why if you go through the resource and go through the sequence, you will be invited to become a beta participant in my course, The Beginner's Guide to AI, which will help you pivot to an AI-safe career. Click the link below. So this is two big pieces of news so far. Let's recap what we've talked about so far. The first thing we talked about was fully autonomous vehicles in licensing in California for statewide service now after hours, but over time that will be pulled into late, middle of the day and then eventually rush hour. And then we talk about new AI-driven code generating tools like Copilot and Codex that help developers, that uses AI to help developers develop code. So big stuff. And this is why I do this live, is to talk about stuff that has just come out so that you can understand the impact on your life and your career if you do one of these two things, if you're a driver or a programmer, and pivot to an AI-safe career, relatively AI-safe career, while there's still time. One of those, as I've said, this is just an example, but I keep mentioning nursing because nursing is hands-on. Nursing requires the human touch. Nursing will be one of the last jobs to be fully automated. Something to think about. And there's others. Okay, now here we go for the biggest news. I saved the best for last today. The biggest news here is DeepMind builds a very preliminary general AI agent. What are we talking about here? We're talking about artificial general intelligence, AGI. DeepMind, as you know, from the last 2+ years of us doing these videos and lives and interviews and stuff, is at the bleeding edge of AI. In the past few years, the dumbest thing has tended to work surprisingly well, this article says. Take, for example, GPT-3. All they did was scale up word prediction to a massive server farm, internet scale service, and you wind up with something capable of being able to predict with very high accuracy using natural language processing. So this is GPT-3. Now DeepMind has done the same thing for reinforcement learning with Gato, an agent where basically DeepMind takes a bunch of distinct tasks that require different skills and put them into the same AI space. And what the AI is able to do is learn to predict tasks from these various things that it's been taught. So the result is a system where within the same network, with the same weights, the AI can play a game like Atari, caption images, chat, stack blocks with a real robot arm, and much more. So after training, Gato can do okay at tasks ranging from DeepMind lab to robot manipulation to image captioning to natural language processing. Is this a big deal? Yes. The fact that you can take a bunch of different tasks requiring different skills and tokenize them and it works is wildly dumb, but wildly effective. And it's in a small package. Gato agent is 1.18 billion parameters, which it goes on to say is fairly small for current AI. If you go back 2 years ago, that would have been a breakthrough size of AI parameters. The Gato model only has a context window of 1,024 tokens. By comparison, GPT-3 was 2,048 when it was launched. So why this matters, although still at the proof of concept stage, the recent advances in generalist models suggest that safety researchers, ethicists, and most importantly, the general public should begin thinking about the risks and benefits of artificial general intelligence, DeepMind writes. Wow, that is a friggin' mind blower. So what does that article say in plain English without all the techno jargon? It says that DeepMind has developed a limited artificial general intelligence that can do multiple different things, even controlling robot arms and stuff, in a small environment that does not need a lot of computer resources, and it can do them cheaply and effectively. And by the way, the people who programmed it say it's time to beware. So this is mind-blowing stuff because it means that just as Ray Kurzweil predicted, remember, he predicted more than 20 years ago that by 2029, computer intelligence would exceed human intelligence. It is now 2022. This is still 7 years away, and they have just perfected a demo-sized AGI. Stunning. This may mean that Ray was too pessimistic. So let's put together these three very different things that we've talked about today and put them together and talk about what it means, because that's what I'm trying to do, is give you the big context. What does this mean? Level 4 autonomy is almost here. AI-driven programming is here. Very simple artificial general intelligence is here. I have been saying for the last few months that most people have no clue how profoundly different the world is going to be in 3 short years. And by 2030, in some ways, not always, but in some ways, unrecognizable from today. So let's talk about what this world looks like. Will you still have a home that you live in with your family or by yourself if you're single? Yes. Will you still go to a grocery store to buy food? No. Will you still go to almost any other kind of store or to the mall or something to buy something. Rarely. Will you still go to see movies? Probably, because by then movies will have morphed into a fully immersive 3D experience, much more sophisticated than what you see today. But you will also have that in your home. But the IMAX size screen is still pretty compelling. How will you go on vacation? You will walk out your door. A fully autonomous vehicle will come by and pick you up and run you. Now, this is if you're in the city, not in the country. But run you a mile down the road to a UAV port where you will get in with your 4 or 5 family members and go exactly to your destination. Not to an airport that takes you to another airport. No. Cut out all that, point to point, from where you get on at the local port to the local port right next to the big hotels at the beach. Even if you live in the country, there may not be fully autonomous vehicles going around because it doesn't make sense. You'll still drive yourself to town probably. But once you get to town, you'll have that same little port for UAVs that can take you to the city or take you to your vacation. What does this mean for jobs by 2030? By 2030, many of us will not be leaving the house every day to go to a job. That will mean a fundamental restructuring of society. I'm not going to get into that today. That's a whole video in itself. But society will be structured differently than it is now. What are the odds of this, what I just said, not happening? Near zero. Why? For the reason that I've said since the very beginning of the AI guide. Technologists live for technology. They love to invent new things. They do not think much about the consequences of those new things. Therefore, they keep inventing them. And it would only be if the government stopped them that the future I just described didn't happen. There are places in the world where that might happen, but I will say not here in the United States, because that is not the way things seem to get done here in the United States. And I'm not going to go further than that because that gets into politics, and this is not a political show. China will allow it so that they stay at the cutting edge and ultimately pull ahead of the U.S. in AI and technology generally. There will be some countries that will slow it down. But we'll see. We'll see. Some things are very difficult to predict, right? Because there are what they call nonlinear events, an exogenous, meaning from the outside shock that changes the direction of things. That can always happen. But if you know anything about Ray Kurzweil and Peter Diamandis, you know that they've been highly accurate in their predictions, and I'm going to stick with what they say. And the These are things that there's very little time to think about now. Start thinking about them. Click the link below, get your free AI resource, go to Amazon, get my book. Simple book, easy to read, gives you a much better idea comprehensively of everything AI is already affecting. And as I've said, most things have been invisible to now, but they won't be soon. So I forgot I was going to show you where we are on the exponential curve, but I promise next Sunday I'll do that. So we'll see you next week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be sure to tune in Wednesday for the pre-recorded video, and we'll see you again here next Sunday, June 5th, 5 p.m. Eastern Time here in the U.S., where we again cover the cutting edge of AI. Thanks so much. Take care. Be well. Hug your families. Take care. Bye.